Episode 108 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are at yesterday's Interpretation Station 6 workshop, you'll be wondering, why is this episode 108 again? Well, there's a good reason for that, because this Muppet here, yes, this one, I buggered it up with the recording. I don't know what I pressed. I didn't record the workshop yesterday. I'm gutted. It was a really good one for everyone that came. I'm so pissed off. I'm so pissed off that I didn't do it properly. I paused it very early on, you see, and I don't know if I forgot to restart it. Anyway, to make up for it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out three short episodes in the world-famous Wham Bam Thank You Roland format, where I'm just going to recap everything that we did yesterday, the French text, the Spanish text, and the Russian text. Put all those episodes out this week, hopefully. And just to say, I'm really sorry. As I say, it was a really great workshop yesterday. But so we're gonna just sum up what we went through before. So I'll put all the links up in the description box, right, for everyone who wasn't there. You'll have the links that'll take you to the transcripts, to the audio as well, so you can practice these. So the one for this episode, it's going to be, we did Haiti, okay, French language. It was a statement by the then president of Haiti at the 2018 General Assembly. So before we get started, just remember, before I forget to say, subscribe, share, go to the Interpretation Station website, theinterpretationstation.org, okay? Come and see me on Wednesday at the TERP Summit. I'm speaking at the TERP Summit on Wednesday. I'll be discussing marking up strategies and techniques, mainly focusing on Spanish and Russian. But I think that's a really useful topic, especially for you guys if you're sort of new to actually working in international organizations, and what to do when you receive the hard copies of text and how to quickly prepare and good shortcuts and ways to just basically help you navigate your way through statements from delegations. Anyway, so that's on Wednesday. Let's get down to Haiti then. I'm going to share the screen. So here we go. So Monsieur Jovenel Moïse. Now, I actually found out subsequently to choosing this text that sadly, this guy, Jovenel Moïse, he was apparently assassinated last year, the president of Haiti. Which is a bit sad. Anyway, so let's Haiti. It's always a lot. What's to remember with Haiti? There's going to be probably a lot of flowery language, and it much revolves around. I've said this in previous Haiti videos. I'll put a link to one I've done before about the earthquake back in 2009. I mean, it completely devastated the country, and it's really been picking up the pieces ever since. So if you happen to have to do a Haiti statement, always bear that in mind, that their position will very much revolve around that situation of theirs, and also their exposure. They also get hit by hurricanes. They're very prone to natural disasters, unfortunately. Okay, so let's go through this. President, Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first of all to commend you, Madam President, on your election as head of the General Assembly. Okay, the great qualities and talent that we are unanimous in recognizing in you are certainly a guarantee for the success of the work of the 73rd regular session. Now, I'll stop myself here. A couple of important things to pick out. Okay, President of the General Assembly, first of all, remember that, the PGA. Then, see this bit here. On est unanime à vous reconnaître. Okay, the great qualities and talent that we are unanimous in recognizing in you. Now, I don't know about you, but I would maybe start getting tripped up there, putting that into English, those few words. Okay, the great qualities and your great qualities and talent, that's easy enough. But that we are unanimous in recognizing in you. The key when you're doing these flowers is these flowers are really neither here nor there. They're not going to make or break your statement. The important thing is not to let them derail you. So, I mean, if I really want to just play safe, I'd even almost skip that bit, on est unanime à vous reconnaître, and just say your qualities and talent are a guarantee for the success of the work of the 73rd session. That's the kind of thing you can almost drop, this est unanime à vous reconnaître. Session ordinaire regular session, not ordinary session. I want to commend the presence of the Secretary General as well as his courageous action to improve the effectiveness of the UN system in the collective la recherche, the collective quest is a nice word, okay, for the common good of humanity. Pour reprendre l'expression du pape François, again, don't feel you have to render word for word this to draw on the expression, to draw on the words of Pope Francis, just, to quote Pope Francis. President, over the years, the GA, you can just, by this point, you can just go to revert to acronyming, okay? The GA has faced two question marks underlying the main themes of its agenda. Interrogation, when I hear in French interrogation, I tend to go with a question mark. And then this word here, sous-jacent. I mean, you could just say here, double two big question marks as to the main themes of the agenda. Again, that sous-jacent, it means it's sort of underlying the main themes on the agenda. It's not crucial to fully convey that image. I think you could just say question marks as to the main themes on the agenda. How to optimize the mechanisms for maintenance of international peace and security. Now, there was a question, I believe, from Rose during the workshop, is how can you tell apart the idea of maintien de la paix et de la sécurité internationale and maintien de la paix? So maintien de la paix et de la sécurité internationale. That is, as I said at the workshop, it's like gospel from the Charter. Okay, that's one of the real maxims in the Charter. And it always comes together in that exact same package. Maintenance, maintien de la paix et de la sécurité internationale. Now, when you see maintien de la paix by itself, it is usually in the context of peacekeeping missions. Okay, les forces de maintien de la paix. It's pretty easy to tell the two apart. Generally, it's in the context, because when you hear the whole package like that, maintien de la paix et de la sécurité internationale, it's always going to be maintenance of international peace and security. Maintien de la paix is usually in the context, as I say, of peacekeeping missions. Okay, how to translate the demands for international solidarity into a much more effective system of cooperation that can promote sustainable development and eradicate poverty around the world. Eradicate poverty. That poverty eradication, that's the sort of stock collocation there. Somebody asked, in the world, poverty, like in English, we would probably say in the world. So you can feel free here to sort of say around the world. That is what we would say more in English. That's fine. The UN has rightly highlighted the close links between poverty eradication, promoting sustainable development, peace and security. That's straightforward enough. Similarly, combating poverty or the struggle against poverty, promoting human rights are inextricably linked. Extreme poverty is a negation of human dignity. So negation, I think denial was the word that was used. You could say either denial or negation. Therefore, it must lie at the heart, figurer au cœur, lie at the heart of the UN's action. And I think there's a misprint here, as well as for the hundreds of millions of men and women who one day hope to see the eradication of poverty. I think maybe this ainsi should have been a pour que, ainsi que, I think it should be maybe a pour que. Okay. Again, dans les mêmes ordres d'idées, similarly, intensification, stepping up, intensifying the struggle against climate change, which is one of the most pressing threats to humanity. Don't feel you have to do anything fancy with Constitu, which you can say poses one of the greatest threats to humanity, but just is by itself is fine. Must be among the les grandes urgences, the top priorities for the international community. I think someone said, whoever was doing it said, talk about the big emergencies. Again, I think that does sound just somehow slightly unnatural in English. I think we'll just keep it again simple here. One of the top priorities for the international community. L'Accord de Paris, so the Paris Accords, the Paris Agreement on Climate, Paris Climate Accords. You can use either or there. 2016 were a major milestone, jalon, that's an important word to know, milestone. Il convient que, there is a need. So I said this yesterday, when I hear, there's two expressions. Il convient que, il y a lieu de. When I hear those, I just go immediately, there is a need to. That as an English expression, it's not glorious. It's not Shakespearean, but it does the job. It gets it out the way, and then you can adapt the rest of the sentence as required, because that is the meaning. That's the connotation of il convient que, or later il y a lieu de. So you'd say here, there is a need for us to do our utmost to ensure that international obligations and commitments that stem thereof are delivered on. Whenever you hear about obligation, engagement, it's going to be about obligations, commitments, and you should immediately press the trigger in your brain that you're going to need. What do you do with commitments and obligations? You uphold them, you deliver on them, you make good on them, okay? Here I slightly paraphrase. I said, there is a need for us to make sure that tout soit mise en œuvre. I think you need to throw in, like a we to make the sentence flow. We know that, régime d'adaptation et atténuation. Okay, so this is a set phrase. Au changement climatique, climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. Okay, atténuation. You want mitigation. That's really a set phrase. Mitigation measures. As well as precautionary measures. Again, don't do anything fancy with that. They're always talking, when it comes to climate change, they always talk about precautionary measures to limit damage, to mitigate the damage, to alleviate the damage. In this case, the use of atténuer here it's not quite the same connotation as it is here in the les régimes d'atténuation. That's specific mitigation regime. So here, again, you could just repeat it. You could say to mitigate the damage, but it's also good to have a couple of synonyms, as I say, like to alleviate damage, to contain the damage. What was the other one I said? To limit the damage are extremely costly. Mitigating, okay, then now he's actually using mitigation. Mitigation of natural risks, which is one of the components of a sustainable development strategy, as an investment today upstream of phenomena which will take place tomorrow, is crucial. Okay, so that's quite a tricky sentence. That could pose problems. There was one thing I wanted to say. En prévision de. Okay, you could say ahead of phenomena. At the UN, they do like to talk about upstream, reacting upstream, as opposed to, if you react downstream, it's too late. Okay, so that's a phrase that they use. Okay, upstream of phenomena that will take place tomorrow is crucial. To date, the financial resources, les moyens financiers, are clearly insufficient or have been found wanting. Okay, if something's in in English we use that expression that they've been found wanting to mean to be insufficient, or you could just play it safe and just say are clearly insufficient to allow a appropriate or a I think the word someone used yesterday was a fitting response. En phase avec l'ampleur des défis posés. And so here I said consistent with the l'ampleur, the magnitude of the challenges in question. So we say en phase avec, you could maybe say commensurate with the scale of the challenges. Okay, and for ampleur, the scale, the scope, the magnitude, the proportions. Mobilizing new resources for sustainable development at planetary level is therefore a top priority. Okay, all that revêt donc un caractère de priorité absolue just basically means is a top priority. Don't feel again that you have to render every single one of those words. We're forcé de constater, we're forced to note. That's a typical thing you'll often hear in French, forcé de constater. Another alternative that occurred to me the other day, one that I sometimes use in regular speeches, it pains me to say it, but okay, I use that a lot. I don't tend to say we're forced to note. I do say a lot, it pains me to say that. So here I think that could work. It pains me to say that the most vulnerable countries, particularly petit pays insulaire. So that's just an idea for you, okay, for forcer de constater. We're forced to note is absolutely fine, but also think about, it pains me to say. Petit pays insulaires, these are basically small island states, okay? The full name is Petit pays insulaire en développement. Those are the SIDS. So that's an acronym that you need to be familiar with, to use. You want to be able to use it. When you hear that, they talk about Petit pays insulaire en développement. That's the SIDS. Above all, in the Caribbean, including Haiti, I don't think you need to say the Republic of Haiti, just Haiti. Emit very little in the way of greenhouse gases, but they subissent la majeure partie des dégâts causés. They bear the brunt of the damage caused by increasingly frequent violent hurricanes. Now, I made an important point here. So this, okay, gaz à effet de serre, greenhouse gases. But let's say that the speaker's going really fast, you've fallen behind, you're on the previous sentence, you're trying to catch up with him. And even as you're finishing this last sentence, un caractère de priorité absolue or whatever, you hear that he's talking about émettre peu de gaz à effet de serre, okay, subissent la majeure partie des dégâts. This is one of the sort of stories that you need to have sort of well articulated in your brain. You should know this, because if you know the story, it's going to really allow you to catch up here, for example, if you've fallen behind, because you can immediately just draw down from your brain to say, Haiti is as a very low CO2 emitter. This gas à effet de serre, okay, literally it's greenhouse gases, but you could just as easily say emitter of fossil fuels or of CO2. It comes down to the same thing. So if you're behind, and then you hear those signpost words, if you like, gaz à effet de serre, subissent la majeure partie. He's going to talk about, they're among the lowest CO2 emitters, but they're bearing the brunt of the damage caused by the industrialized countries. Okay, it's similar. It's it's knowing the backstory. It's very important. It's very important. It's going to really help you, okay? It's similar, I was comparing it to if you're doing a statement, let's say, on a situation in Palestine and Israel, potential peace treaty, the two-state solution along the 1967 borders, Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. If you know the story, the background to it, it doesn't matter if you don't render specifically each and every word that the original speaker is saying, because you can just draw down on that story that you already have in your head, and it will come to the same thing. So it's important, really, to know the background knowledge, really. The promises made during the One Planet Summit in Paris to allow countries to adapt their environment and to mitigate the effects of the affres, the vagaries of climate change, must be delivered on. Okay. Promises, pledges, promises made. Okay, so with promises and pledges, you can just must be kept, you could say, for matérialiser une promesse, delivered on, again, made good, it must be made good on. What else was I going to say? Affres, okay, vagaries. When I ever hear affres, I go with vagaries. Okay, then we have, Madam President. Remember, you can just drop Madam President. I'm a big one for if I'm in trouble, dropping that. Last year at the same time, tensions stemming from the Korean crisis had reached boiling point. Big congratulations there to Jonathan McGregor for coming up with that solution. I thought that was excellent. Atteint le paroxysme. I mean, it's like had reached their peak, you could say. Another example, what else did... Monday suggested tensions were coming to a head. So all those are good, really good suggestions. Dangerously threatening international peace. Fortunately today, the escalation has given way to promising dialogue between the US and North Korea. Just a quick mention, North Korea. If you hear Corée du Nord, feel free to say North Korea. Sometimes, though, they will get, maybe more often, the country will be referred to as its constitutional name. So don't forget, its constitutional name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. In English, we can call it the DPRK. In French, I believe it's La République de Corée démocratique populaire, le RCDP, and that does sometimes get used, so be on the lookout for that. Here's our il y a lieu de. There's a need to réjouir et saluer, commend and welcome. I think you could probably drop one of those. You could probably just say to welcome, for example, the courageous efforts by American leaders, déployer, you don't need to really render déployer, by the US and North Korean leaders, tout en espérant, here's a chance, you know what, this is quite a long sentence, this is a good opportunity here, I'd have thought, to put a full stop in. But when you hear like that, then going into this present participle, tout en espérant, good chances to close that previous sentence, that previous clause, because by itself that makes sense, right? We should commend the courageous efforts of the US and North Korean leaders. And then you start a new sentence. We hope that the historic Singapore summit of 12th of June will ouvrir la voie, pave the way, set the stage, open the way, whatever, for a comprehensive peace agreement and the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Similarly, Haiti welcomes the positive impact, les retombées, just the positive impact, I think it's fine, of the 2016 peace agreement signed by the government of Colombia and the FARC, les Forces Armées Révolutionnaires Colombiennes, to give them their full name. I think it was Monday was doing this, and she quite rightly just went straight to FARC. People know what the FARC is. If you're talking about Colombia, people should know immediately who the FARC are. So I don't think you need to give them the full name. You can if you've got the time, if the speaker's going slowly, but if not, you can revert straight to FARC. This agreement undoubtedly opens a new chapter in the history of this pays frère, of this brother country. I think you want to try and get across this connotation of the pays frère. The African countries, Haiti, do like to use this kind of vocabulary to talk about sister countries, brother countries. If you're not certain if it's going to be brother or sister, I call them sometimes kindred countries, okay? They're of the same kin. We encourage all parties concerned to spare no effort in literally making irreversible the outstanding progress achieved as part of the peace and reconciliation process. But you know what? In English, we're probably more like to say, what do we do with progress or gains? Okay, we safeguard gains, we consolidate gains, all right? Or we cement gains. So don't feel, again, that you have to get that notion of the irreversible in. If safeguard is the first thing that comes into here, just go with it, just to safeguard the remarkable gains made as part of the peace process. S'il convient, this again, there is a need to. Okay, so let's just do it as it's written. While we should commend the easing of tensions in certain hot points around the globe, we're forced to note, it pains me to say, that we are still very far from an era of a widespread détente. Now, first thing I'll say, s'il convient de se féliciter. You know, this is going to be a while clause, right? While we should welcome one thing, we need to watch out that something else is going to happen. There is an argument to be made here for just turning this while clause into just an affirmative and just saying we should welcome the easing of tensions in certain points of the globe, full stop, and then turn the next sentence, start with a but. But we're forced to note that we're still a long way from an era of widespread détente. Now, the reason for this is, why do I say this? So if you go with the while clause, while there is a need to welcome the easing of tensions, the listener knows that this is going to be a two-part sentence. So he's heard the while, and he's going to be waiting for the other half of the sentence. The sort of the other so he's had the good side, but now he knows there's a bad side coming. Now the problem is, if you go with that while, you really have to get the full sentence in for that sentence to be coherent, to get the full information across. Because let's say you get the while part of it right, okay, he's still hanging on for this second part of the sentence, beginning force et de constater. And if you make a mess of that force et de constater part of the sentence, you kind of lost the whole idea. You've just left the listener hanging on that word while. Whereas if you just say, we should welcome the easing of tensions in certain parts of the world, full stop, that's a package of information that has been delivered to your listener. Now, maybe you make a balls up of this second half. Maybe you missed this bit about we're still far away from an era of generalized détente. But at least you've delivered half the package, okay? If you go with a while and you lose the second half, none of the package is getting delivered, okay? So think about that. And then there's a couple of interesting words here: apaisement des tensions, easing of tensions, a thaw in tensions. I know Natalie was asking me about this afterwards, for apaisement, an easing of tensions. We're forced to note that we're still far from the era of détente généralisée. So for détente, I would just say détente. I mean, we can use that word in English, okay? So don't overthink. So just general détente, widespread détente, universal détente, okay? On the contrary, nouveau foyer de crise, new hotspots, new flashpoints. Those are two crucial synonyms to have emerged here and there. There has been a worrying resurgence in the narrative of war as a way of resolving conflict. Now, just note what I did there, okay? I did, again, split up the sentence, okay? I heard that témoignant, present participle, And I thought, okay, let's just close off the previous sentence. New hotbeds, new flashpoints are emerging, full stop. There has been a recent resurgence, a worrying resurgence. Okay, the other way of doing that, I could have said, on the contrary, new hot points are emerging here and there, témoignant de, reflecting, attesting to a worrying resurgence. Okay, so that's two ways to approach that. Now, we had a very interesting discussion about la logique de guerre. This is something the French they really like to use it. It's a very high register. They like to talk about logique, and he does so twice here, you'll see. And I sort of suggested to people, can you think of a good old solution here? Because one thing I often do would just leave it out, okay? That's one option that's often recommended, and just saying a worrying resurgence in wars, okay? But there is a little nuance nonetheless to that logique. So I've often thought that maybe mindset could work, a worrying resurgence of the mindset of war. And then Haley very suggested narrative, a worrying resurgence of the narrative of war, which I really liked. And then I was thinking, I was in the bathroom today brushing my teeth, and then also what occurred to me was the word default. There's a worrying resurgence of defaulting to the narrative of war. It's a bit long to say. So if you had the time, you could say it. But also you could just say the worrying resurgence of the narrative of war. So just giving you ideas. Think of like defaulting, always defaulting to war, defaulting to conflict. And we'll see how it works with a second example. As a way of règlement des conflits, settling conflict, resolving conflict. The horrors of the civil war in Yemen are a tragic illustration de la logique de l'affrontement, of the narrative of conflict, which prevails in particular in the Arabian-Persian Gulf. So again, the narrative of war, an illustration of defaulting to the narrative of conflict. I think it worked. I think I like narrative, and I like my own. I think the default also has got potential, prometteur. Okay, so that's as far as we got actually in this text. We did those first 2 pages. As I say, give the rest of it a try. The links will be all there. And so yeah, I hope that was a really productive session. We learned some very interesting new words, new potential approaches to some of these classic, typical French sayings. And there you go. If you like the episode, smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe, as I said before. Keep following me on the LinkedIn. I'm going to put out this week. There's going to be another Spanish one, another Russian one. And yeah, that's it. I can't be bothered going out, finishing with a long spiel. I'm just going to close up here and say that episode 108 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Until next time, folks.